Welcome everyone, Costin here to talk about Steam machines. Well, let's just say Valve fucked this up on so many levels. You screwed this up. First off, how is this page organized on the Steam machine page? Is it by name that this is organized? It's not organized by price point, I can tell you that for a fact. It seems to be organized by name, which is just fucking horrible when you've got so many different machines with so many different price points. So fucking horrid. And which ones are worth it? Well, this is not something that's gonna help people that are casual gamers that don't know how to build a computer, that don't know what components to pick, that don't know how to assemble all of it. So it's not marketed towards them. Even though it should be, it's not going to be useful for them. And for those of us that do know how to build a computer from scratch, that do know what components to pick and all of that, this doesn't have enough information for us to make a proper informed decision. That said, there's just a single Steam machine that might be a good value for your money, though we don't know the exact specs. And when I say that, let me look at the Alienware Steam machine, the cheapest one, right? Look at Alienware Steam machine A. Like, there's various models, but none of them give you that much information. It's like, oh, CPU, Intel Core i3 dual core processor. Okay. First question, what line of Intel Core i3s are we talking about here? Is it the most recent one? Is it Ivy Bridge? Is it, God forbid, Sandy Bridge? Not that Sandy Bridge is in any way bad, but it's just, which line are you talking about? Which model of an i3 are we talking about after we sort the line out? Which model are we talking about here? Because there's, what, 4 to 6 different models per line for an i3? That's just ridiculous. That's just the CPU. The GPU, a GeForce GTX 2GB GDDR5. Again, which line? Are we talking 700 series, 900 series, 600 series? I haven't seen one that's 600 series. I have seen a 700 one, a 750 Ti here, but I have to assume this is a GTX 960. I would hope so. But still, which model? Is it a basic card, the stock card, or is it a custom one by Gigabyte, MSI, EVGA, or Asus? Which one is it? Really? Memory, 4GB, DDR3, L. What the hell does that L mean? I don't know. 1600 megahertz. Well, actually, I kind of don't know what the L means. But still, which model is it? Which company makes it? It's like, okay, they at least give you the megahertz, but still, we don't have enough information. Storage, 500GB hard drive. That's useful. Not even the rotation per minute or anything like that. Just the storage capacity. It's like, you're so fucking useless, Alienware. Really? It's like 500GB hard drive. By who? How fast is this? Which company made it? Seriously, this is horrid. It's like, oh, you might want to get this one for $479. No, you don't want to get this one because you don't know what the hell you're doing. And this one would not run games. Let's assume it's an i60 with an i3. This would not run games beyond medium settings at 1080p at more than 30 FPS. So it's not worth it. And, you know, just going back to it for a bit, they don't tell you two important things. What motherboard are you getting, right? And what power supply unit you're getting. Those things do matter as well. You know, the motherboard with the CPU, it does matter what chipset you have on the motherboard, because CPUs, especially high-end ones like an i7, i5, they'll run better on motherboards with certain chipset. For instance, I have an i7 3770K. It's not worth it to get an i7 just for gaming. An i5 will do the job most of the time, but you know, I record videos, I render videos, so for me it's worth it. Or it was worth it until I discovered Shadowplay, but that's another discussion. But for most people, an i5 is gonna do, but only if they have a motherboard that's capable of taking full advantage of that CPU. If you have one that's not, you're gonna have a performance impact. So knowing the motherboard matters. Knowing what the PSU is also matters, because, you know, PC should be customizable at the end of the day. Now, out of all of these, which ones are worth it? There's only two I could recommend. The rest of them, too expensive or too weak. There's actually two, I think, with integrated GPUs. It's like, what? These are gaming machines. What are you gonna game on an integrated GPU? Seriously, Valve. Has someone hit you over the head with this? Anyway, the Asus ROG GR8S. This is the lower end one that's worth it. The only one of the lower end ones that's worth it. Now, when we're talking lower end, we're talking our mid-range PC overall. It starts at $700. Let's assume you're going for the $700 model. You can spend more, get something more powerful. But you would get an Intel Core i5. Doesn't tell you which model, doesn't tell you which line, whatever. An NVIDIA GeForce 900 series. So, cheapest one, probably GTX 960. Very likely. Memory, 4GB of DDR3. Storage, 500GB, 7,200 RPM hard drive, or 128GB. At least they tell you the RPM. That actually matters. You know, you want this particular RPM here. You could go higher, or, you know, there's even ones lower. But this is one, this RPM is the one you want to go for generally. Though you might go for 10,000 or even higher. There are ones that are slightly higher, not by much. Generally not worth the price though. But still, if you got the CPU at $700 with an i5, a 960, 4GB of DDR3 and 500GB hard drive or 128GB SSD, that's a good value proposition. To the point that if you went to a store, I checked this out on Newegg. I went to Newegg, I picked components for a computer that's similar to this, and I came at about the same price point to this. But keep in mind, you don't know what motherboard you're getting. You don't know what power supply unit you're getting. But of all the Steam machines, this is the only one that I could strongly recommend. It's a good value proposition. Asus has a good reputation as well, when it comes to assembling computers. Also, when it comes to making hardware, you're probably gonna get an Asus motherboard, which is a pretty good choice, mind you. And then you're gonna get, maybe you would get Asus GPU as well, because they do make custom GPUs, or you'd probably get the stock one, I don't know. You might even go for something high-end. You could go for the i7, though probably not worth it. But hey, if you want to, go ahead. Then get the 980 if they would allow you on this computer, and 8 gigs of DDR3 or 16 gigs. Personally, I don't think 16 gigs is worth it, just for gaming. 8 gigs is what you need most of the time for recommended settings. You might go higher, but that's just my opinion. And a 500GB SSD. If you're going for a machine that's just going to be used purely for gaming, 500GB SSD, you don't need a regular hard drive anymore. That's my personal stance. Others would disagree. Now, in terms of something that would be from the start high-end, the only one that's worth it here, and I've looked at every single one of these fucking machines, is the Cyber Steam machine. Not the basic model, not the A1. This is horrible. Like, really fucking horrible. I was like, $600 for an i3. At least they tell you the model. And a 750 Ti, right. That Alienware one might be a 750 Ti, by the way. Anyway, the only one that's worth it of all of these is the Cyber Steam Machine X at $1,400. For that, you're getting an i7 4790K, a GTX 980, 4GB of memory there, 8GB of DDR3 at 1600 MHz, and 1TB, 7,200 RPM. That's worth it. Like, for that price point, that's worth it. You still don't know what CPU, you still don't know, you still don't know what motherboard and what power supply unit you're getting, but for this particular price point, it is worth it. Far more so than many of the other machines that are on this bloody page. It's like, look at the Origin Omega Steam machine, $5,000, starting at $900, going to $5,000. Well, fuck you. It's like $5,000. Anyone who spends $5,000 is being stupid. SLI is now worth it most of the time, because there's many games which have problems running in SLI. It's like, storage up to 14 terabytes. What the hell are you going to do with 14 terabytes? I record videos and I don't need that much. I have a 600GB hard drive and 2 SSDs, each at 120GB. That's enough for me to put all my games and record all my footage. That's enough. You don't need 14 terabytes. That's just ridiculous. Up to an i7 4770K. That's actually pretty good. But not the best, mind you. But still, you'll run It's the best CPU you could probably get until the point you get bottlenecks due to the GPU. Up to freeway NVIDIA GeForce GTX 980. It's like, it's like the assumption here is that you'll be able to pick between various models of CPUs, GPUs, and all of that, but they don't tell you what. It's like this information will probably be available in November, but for now it's just like really horrible. This is not worth it. Most of them. The only one that's really worth it is the Asus one, and that's only if you go for something more low end. If you're going for something more high end, it's probably worth it to build it your own. Pick your own computer or get someone who knows how to do that. Pay him and he'll do it for you. Or learn how to do it yourself. It's not really that difficult. It's more difficult to assemble it on your own, especially the CPU. No, not the CPU fan. Anyone who's ever assembled a CPU computer knows what I'm talking about when it comes to CPU cooler. It's just a bloody nightmare installing that thing all the time. But still, the CyberSteam Machine X and the Asus ROG machine. Those are the two that are worth it from this page. The Asus one far more so than the CyberSteam. Well, that's all I had to say here. Costin signing out. Horrible job, Valve. Horrible job.